The night was a ravenous beast, teeth bared in a glacial snarl. Wind howled, an icy predator stalking the land. Snow, relentless, choked the world in a blanket of white silence. A lone figure stumbled through the blinding storm, each breath a painful rasp, each step a monumental effort against the fury of the blizzard. The woman, bundled in layers, fought against the cold seeping into her bones, her vision blurred, the line between the swirling snow and the night sky dissolving into a dizzying white blur. She couldn't recall how long she'd been wandering. Time, like her surroundings, had become a hazy, unreliable thing. Her name, Anya, echoed faintly in her mind. Anya, lost in a wilderness of white. Anya, her life force slowly surrendering to the cold. The memory of warmth, a distant flicker, danced before her eyes. A fireplace crackling merrily, a warm mug cradled in her gloved hands. Home, a lifetime away. The storm intensified, its icy claws tearing at her dwindling strength. Her legs, heavy and numb, threatened to buckle beneath her. The snow beneath her feet, once yielding, now seemed to pull her down, urging her to surrender. With a surge of desperate energy, Anya stumbled forward, her gloved hand reaching out, searching for something, anything, to anchor her to this world. Her fingers brushed against something solid. A shape emerged from the swirling snow, a small, abandoned cabin barely visible beneath the drifts. Hope, fragile and unexpected, bloomed in her chest. She stumbled towards it, each step a victory against the relentless grip of the cold. Reaching the cabin door, she pounded on the rough wood, her numbed fists barely registering the pain. Silence. The wind howled in response, mocking her feeble attempt at salvation. Gathering the last vestiges of her strength, she threw her weight against the door. It creaked open, revealing a darkness deeper than the night itself. Anya hesitated, fear a cold knot in her stomach. But the storm raged on, and the warmth of survival beckoned her forward. The interior of the cabin was a tomb of dust and shadows. Every corner seemed to whisper tales of abandonment and neglect, the air thick with the weight of years gone by. The air, heavy and stale, did little to alleviate the biting cold. But it was shelter, a fragile sanctuary against the relentless winter outside. The walls, though thin, provided a barrier, however slight, against the howling winds, a temporary reprieve from the killing frost. Outside, the snowstorm raged on, a white fury that showed no mercy. The icy landscape was a testament to nature's unforgiving power. She fumbled in her pack for her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a beacon. The light revealed the stark reality of her surroundings but also offered a sense of direction and purpose. The cabin was small, a single room with a fireplace long cold. The emptiness of the room was palpable, a stark contrast to the life it once held. A rickety table and chair stood against one wall, remnants of a life long gone. The furniture, though old and worn, hinted at the stories and memories that once filled this space. Anya's gaze fell upon a pile of firewood stacked neatly beside the hearth. It was a small but significant discovery, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak situation. Hope, a flickering flame, rekindled within her. In this dire situation, even the smallest sign of potential warmth was enough to lift her spirits. She gathered the wood, her frozen fingers struggling with the task. Each piece of firewood was a step closer to survival, a step away from the cold that threatened to consume her. Striking a match, she coaxed a small fire to life. The initial spark was a delicate dance, a moment of tension as the flame caught and began to grow. The flames, though meager, offered a promise of warmth, a fragile barrier against the deadly chill that had seeped into her very core. The fire's gentle crackle was a comforting sound, a reminder that life, however tenuous, still persisted. Section 5. Racing against time. As the fire grew, casting dancing shadows on the cabin walls, the warmth was a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. Anya allowed herself a moment of respite, her body aching from the relentless cold and exhaustion. A heavy cloak threatened to pull her under. Her eyelids drooped, but she fought to stay awake. She knew she couldn't give in, not yet. Removing her snow-caked gloves, she felt the sting of the cold air on her skin. She held her hands towards the flames, the heat a searing, welcome pain that brought her back to the present moment. The storm raged outside, howling winds and swirling snow creating a barrier between her and the outside world. But within the cabin's rough-hewn walls, there was a fragile sense of safety, a temporary refuge from the storm. A different battle was being waged. a race against time, against the cold that threatened to claim her. The cold seeped into her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. She wrapped herself in blankets, but it was not enough. Anya knew she needed to find help. She couldn't survive alone for much longer. But the storm showed no signs of abating, the relentless snow and wind making any journey perilous. The nearest town was miles away, a distant hope on the horizon, unreachable in these conditions. A treacherous journey even in the best of conditions. She was trapped, isolated from any help. At the mercy of the elements, she felt a growing sense of despair. The cold was relentless, unforgiving, and the dwindling hope of rescue weighed heavily on her mind. She was alone, fighting against the odds, racing against time. Section 6. The Impossible Thaw. Hours crawled by, each one an eternity, as if time itself had frozen in the icy grip of the night. The fire, her only companion, crackled and popped, consuming the wood with an insatiable hunger, its warmth a fragile barrier against the encroaching cold. Anya, her body racked with chills, drifted in and out of consciousness, her mind a battleground between the warmth of the fire and the relentless cold. In her fevered state she saw visions, her mind conjuring images that danced on the edge of reality. Faces swam before her eyes, their features distorted by the heat of the flames, merging and shifting in the flickering light. Voices whispered her name, carried on the howling wind, a haunting melody that sent shivers down her spine. Were they real, or figments of her imagination, conjured by the cold that gnawed at her sanity? The line between reality and hallucination blurred. She woke with a start, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird, the echoes of her dreams lingering in the darkness. The fire had dwindled to embers, the cabin plunged once more into a chilling gloom, the shadows growing longer and more menacing. Panic surged through her, a primal fear of the darkness that threatened to consume her, the silence amplifying her every breath. But as her eyes adjusted, she noticed something strange, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The air, though still bitterly cold, felt different, lighter, somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. And the silence, it was absolute, a profound stillness that enveloped her. The wind, which had been her constant companion, had vanished, leaving behind an eerie calm that was both unsettling and strangely comforting. Section 7. Whispers of the Wind. Anya stumbled to her feet, her legs shaky beneath her. Moving towards the door, she peered out into the night. The storm, as if by some unseen hand, had vanished. The sky, clear and cold, glittered with a million stars. And then she saw it, a figure, silhouetted against the moonlit snow, walking towards her. Tall and imposing, it moved with an unnatural grace, its footsteps silent on the pristine white blanket. Anya's breath caught in her throat. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her exhaustion. Who was this stranger arriving so unexpectedly in this desolate, frozen wasteland? Was it friend or foe, rescuer or harbinger of something far more sinister? As the figure drew closer, Anya strained to make out its features. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of dread and anticipation. The moonlight illuminated the stranger's face, and Anya gasped. It was her, or rather a reflection of herself. The same dark hair, the same piercing blue eyes, the same determined set to the jaw. But there was something different, something unsettling about the stranger's gaze. An emptiness, a coldness that sent shivers down Anya's spine. The figure stopped a few feet away, its eyes locked on Anya's. No words were spoken, but a silent understanding seemed to pass between them, a recognition that transcended the boundaries of language and logic. Anya, her voice a mere whisper, spoke the question that hung heavy in the air. "Who are you?" The figure's lips moved, but no sound emerged. Instead, it raised its hand, a gesture that beckoned Anya forward, a silent invitation to follow, to journey into the unknown. Anya hesitated, torn between the primal urge to flee and an inexplicable pull towards this enigmatic figure. The cold, which had previously threatened to consume her, now seemed to emanate from within, a chilling truth settling in her heart. She understood. This being, this reflection, was not a rescuer, but a guide, a harbinger of a fate she had narrowly avoided, a fate far more profound and far more terrifying than mere death. With a shuddering breath, Anya took a step forward, crossing the threshold into a reality beyond comprehension. The world around her shimmered, the familiar landscape dissolving into a swirling vortex of snow and starlight. The cold, once her enemy, now flowed through her veins, a part of her very essence. She understood now. She had not survived the storm, not in the way she once believed. The Anya that had sought shelter, that had fought for survival, was gone. In her place stood something new, something both familiar and profoundly alien. A being of ice and shadow, forever bound to this frozen wasteland. As the last vestiges of her former life faded away, Anya turned towards her doppelganger, a sense of acceptance settling over her. Together, they walked into the endless expanse of white, two figures swallowed by the blinding snow. The storm, which had seemed to vanish, was merely slumbering, waiting to claim the next lost soul who dared to venture into its icy embrace. For in this desolate, frozen wilderness, death was not an ending but a transformation. A merging with the cold, an eternity spent wandering the unending winter.